Alright, so this next little phase of the project is to replace the fuel pump with this fuel pump that's included with the Jbugs kit. So here's the original pump. This has actually been replaced once before, and it's kind of an inline pump. It has some posts on it for you to connect, and so the connectors that connect on here are little loops as opposed to slide-on plugs. So we're probably going to have to change those. The other thing is you can see the geometry is different. It's a much more compact unit. I don't know what the ratings are. I imagine that you could probably stick with the old pump. I don't know that for certain, but in that this was part of the kit, it could very well be that this has a different PSI, different pressure rating. It's designed to be turned on and off electronically to keep the fuel pressure correct, and it has a return line, which the new system won't be using that return line. So it's all going to be over here. So we're gonna go with the system as the kit comes with it, and we're gonna go ahead and set this up. So it's going to have a look underneath and see how we can change the geometry to make it work. All right, so you can see the fuel pump gets connected right here in the wheel well of the passenger side in the front. You can see there's a couple of mounting brackets here. The old one had a cylindrical bracket that would clamp down on it, and the new one, the instructions on that come with the fuel pump says to screw it into the firewall, or this front plate here. I'm not going to do that. I like having these rubber mounts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the back side of this rubber mount, which has the holes defined, and I'm going to make a plate based on this that will allow me to match this up right like that. So we'll still use the same screws, we'll still use the same mount, but we'll get it mounted up like this. Now let's have a look at some of the hoses. So this is the line that goes to the engine. So this is our flow. It'll be going in that direction, and this is our line that comes down from the fuel tank. So this will be our access. The diagram on this fuel pump says which way the flow should go, and you can see there's an arrow right here. I don't know if you can see that. There's an arrow that points in that direction. So if we orient it like this, we'll be lined up just right. The other thing to consider is these wires. These wires come from right here in the center hump, and they have one red. I think it's red with a blue stripe, yeah, and then a brown wire. I believe that the red with the blue stripe is the hot wire and the brown is the ground, but we'll confirm that before we get to that point. And likewise with this one, and again it's going to be in this direction, so the wires will be oriented correctly, so that's not going to be a problem. We're assuming that the red wire is the hot wire, and the one with the loop was intended to be the ground that would be strapped to the engine for a ground. We're not going to strap it to the engine for a ground. We're going to go ahead and keep with the current wiring diagram. I don't want a wire hanging out here, and I want to use the original wiring diagram. So we'll connect these two wires to these two wires, and everything will be hunky-dory. All right, so let's do a little bit of metalworking and make a plate that we can reutilize these rubber mounts, and get this thing ready to be mounted. All right, so there you go. I've got the posts changed over here to, I've actually put a female on one side and a male on the other so that I don't confuse them, and went ahead and put matching female and male on the other side so that I know that I'll match the red up with the red. So I got a male over here and a female over here on the red, and that way I'll know that everything will match up when we put it together. Here's the here's a good look at that little bracket that I made. You can see I just took a piece of metal and drilled a couple holes in it, but when you set it up in place, you won't see a bunch of nuts and bolts and stuff, and we'll just put the nuts for the other one on here, and the flow will be going this direction when we set it in there. So the next thing here is to kind of plan out what we're going to do with the hoses, because this is the from pump to engine right here. So I think I'm probably going to end up shortening this one so that it goes to like right here. But this one here, although it sticks up a lot, we got to be able to fit a filter in there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop it around so the filter will go behind the fuel pump, and then we'll put a little piece of hose in the end of the filter to catch the fuel pump right here. There was a whole lot of line in here, and with the old one, it would loop back and forth, and I don't know why there was so much line. It could be so that you could pull it out and service it, but how often do you service your fuel pump? So I think we're gonna figure out what to do with the hoses here. But we do have to have a filter worked into the system, and that filter should be before the pump. So coming out of the fuel tank, I'm just going to use this aftermarket filter that I've already got set up, and I think we'll just rig it so it goes behind the fuel pump, and then the fuel pump will be right there, and then the outline will go right here. So we'll probably cut this one. So that's the plan. Let's go ahead and get this thing up in place and see what it looks like. All right, so there we go. This is the configuration. I ended up replacing this hose because the old one was, here you can see, it was getting kind of brittle. It didn't flex very well either, and I didn't like the gauge. But I went ahead and put some new hose in there. This is the line that goes through to the fuel filter, which is now hidden behind the little mounting bracket here, and that goes up to the tank. So from the tank, through the filter, around into the pump where the flow says out this way, and that goes to the engine. So that's the configuration that we're going to go with. Just need to connect these electrical wires, and then we can start doing some testing. All right, moving on. All right, so we're going to call that the end of this segment of the project. This is installation of the fuel pump on a conversion from fuel injected to carburation on a 1979 Super Beetle. Here you can see a quick review. We pulled out the old one and made a little bracket so we could put the new fuel pump on to the same mounting bracket. It's kind of a rubber mount, gives you some flexibility, and replaced a couple of the lines, reran some of the routing. This comes from the fuel tank through the filter up into the fuel pump, and then the flow goes back toward the engine through right here. We did some wiring here, replaced the hoop connectors with standard male and female connectors. I've got some shrink wrap on here. Once we get it all tested and everything, we're going to hit this shrink wrap just to make sure everything is sealed. But that is a good summary of what we did today. And in this phase of the project, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run through some electrical testing and diagnostics and see if we can get this car running. All right, that'll be the last phase, hopefully. All right, check back later and make sure you subscribe for the next part of this project.